Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Candid Conversation Show with Coach Stacy. That's my intro. Look, that's my intro.
I love it.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Candid Conversation Show where we have real people, real topics, and real stories right here on 108 Praise Radio where we voice the gospel. Okay, so today, happy Saturday. I am Coach Stacy, certified life coach, speaker, and author, and I empower women and a few select men to dominate in their purpose. And my testimony of overcoming domestic violence, cancer, and a few other traumatic experiences makes me passionate about helping other people struggling with wanting to throw in the towel. So not only have I broken free, but I've helped countless other people walk boldly and authentically in their purpose over the last 10 years as a life coach. And right here on Candid Conversation, we have amazing guests who come on and share impactful stories, books, testimonies. I just believe that it's important to share your story because you never know who needs your story to keep moving. You never know who's listening or who's watching and who needs to hear your story of overcome to give them some hope. So today we have an amazing guest who is going to share a piece of her journey with us. We're going to talk about who she is, what she does, and how she's impacting lives all over the world. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Natalie Purdy. So, he on it. It could have went a little longer than that, but...
I love your sound effect.
Thank you. So one day we're gonna have it just simultaneously. I'll have to tell them to cut. But no, I love it. But we have Miss Natalie Purdy here, and she's gonna share her story with us. But before I introduce her, I want to give some shout outs. I want to give a big hello to the B5 in North Carolina. I want to give a shout out to Cashville, Nashville, Tennessee. Everyone who's tuned in from Nashville, give you a big shout out to my hometown. And hello to all of you listening this morning to Candid Conversation with Coach Stacy. Thank you for tuning in. I do want to let you guys know that you can always catch the replay on the app at 108 Praise Radio, or you can go to Facebook, Candid Conversation with Coach Stacy, to catch the replay. If you missed last week's show, you missed a full course meal. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you did. Oh, I like that too. You missed a full course meal. So you want to go back and check out that replay. But today, let me introduce you to my guest on today, the beautiful Natalie Purdy. She is a walking testimony, and so we're going to speak with her today in recognition of Domestic Violence Month. Of course, we know this is Domestic Violence Month, Breast Cancer Survivor Month, but I have Miss Purdy here representing domestic violence, and so let me tell you about who she is and what she does. She is an advocate and a survivor of domestic violence. She was attacked by her boyfriend who stabbed her 30 times with a pair of scissors. She had a fractured skull, a blood tumor on her brain, post-traumatic seizures, and a road to recovery to learn how to write and walk again. Years later, she was approached by an investigator who informed her that they needed her to testify against the same person who victimized her. He attacked another woman, and she knew that this was a turning point in her life, and she was a surprise witness on that case. After the trial, she provided a reporter with her story, and the next day it made the front page. That same night, she was asked to do an interview on the local news, and this would be the beginning of her breaking her silence and being able to do what she has always desired to do, which is speak up and speak out. So we want to welcome her to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are you ready?
Yes, we're ready. No, but I also want to let you guys know that she has appeared on several Lifetime Movie Network pictures. She was on the show I Dated a Psycho, Season 1, Episode 5. She did a live interview for Changing Lives TV show. a speaker for Butterflies with Voices that recognizes breast cancer survivors and domestic violence survivors. Of course, Delta Sigma Theta, Samaritan House, and many other organizations. So she does go around a lot and speak out. And I know right now, currently, you're speaking out about teenage dating in the high schools locally.
Yes.
Yes, you're doing a lot of that, huh?
Yes.
It's fun, huh?
It is.
It is fun. It is fun. But that's good that you're speaking out.
Yes, because a lot of our teens are being affected by it more and more.
Yes.
Younger and younger.
Yes. Of course, she's spoken on many radio stations. Lord Jesus, a lot. I'm not going to say them all. She was a keynote speaker for the U.S. Navy. She's a panel for Partnership Against Domestic Violence, the Teen Summit. She's a keynote speaker for Promise Place Teen Dating Violence Summit. So she's speaking out. She was also a special guest with the Real Housewives of Atlanta on an episode to raise awareness against domestic violence. And, man, she does a lot of work behind the scenes helping victims to become survivors. She also works with friends and families of victims and survivors, and she goes to court with the victims to offer support, and she works very hard to bring awareness about passing bills like the ERA and Marcy's Law. She's currently working on a book and a collaboration with other survivors. Yay! And her ultimate goal is not only to help others, but to inspire them and bring awareness with her speaking engagements by traveling all over the world doing it. And once again, we welcome you. And I know the viewers, are waiting patiently to hear your story. Wow, long journey it's been.
Yes, very long.
Yeah, because I saw the show, so I kind of know the story a little bit.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm telling you, you want to give a little insight on what you went through, what started this journey?
Well, what started my journey was being silent for so long. I had been quiet for so long. And it was just something in my spirit. I always knew I needed to, and I wanted to speak out. And I know for a fact now that God was preparing me for this journey, and it was in His time. And so I had been silent. I was like, you know what? It's in His time, so let me I never spoke about it again.
So after it happened, you just went kneel.
Yes. Yes. Because we all know that any kind of domestic violence, intimate partnership violence, people just don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
And so my family is very old school, so they didn't want to talk about it. But they also didn't want to talk about it because of my post-traumatic seizures.
Okay.
They didn't want it to be something to trigger a seizure. So my father, who's a really big man in stature and just the way that he is, his voice and everything, he told the entire family, don't ask.
Okay.
So many people, either they knew something happened, but they didn't know what happened, or some didn't know anything at all. So can you imagine, like, years later, when it came on TV and they were calling me like, are you acting? Or is it looks real, but
yes.
Yeah. So that's basically, a lot of them found out through the television show.
Okay. Wow.
But when it came time for me to testify as a surprise witness, I think that was the first time that I really heard God speak to me to tell me, now is the time. Now is the time that you'll get to tell and make a difference. And so I sat in that, and I didn't tell anyone else. Nobody.
Wow.
And it went on for a year.
And until you finally decided, okay.
A year. Can you imagine?
But that's how we do. We run from the calls that be on our lives.
Well, no, I didn't sit in it for a year to not speak out to anyone. It was a year before we went to court.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't tell anybody I had to go to court for a year.
Oh, wow.
They kept continuing it and continuing it and continuing it. And I knew, because that was the same thing that happened to me, that they continued, kept continuing it. So I knew that that was a tactic. because unfortunately, a lot of times in domestic violence and rapes, that's one of the tactics they use, because as time goes on, the scars, especially the external scars, heal, even though internal doesn't. But external, they know that it heals. Witnesses are not as adamant, and unfortunately, the victims, they give up.
Wow.
And it's sometimes they give up.
Because the time is just
The
going
time
on
has gone
and
on, and you've been dragging it on, and now I just want it to be over so I
never
can
thought about
really
it like that.
start healing. I want to heal. It's not that they're giving up and they don't want to see justice. It's just so many other things. Like I keep coming to court, and imagine sitting in, I'm sure sitting in a courtroom, and it's all these people looking at you. And sometimes those people are there for other cases. They really could care less about you and what's going on.
Right.
But it just still feels like,
Right.
all eyes are on you and people are judging you.
That's something that you said, because I did the same thing. I just gave up judicially to this day. They kept continuing it. Things kept, and I just said, forget it.
And they know that.
Wow.
Yeah, they know that. But it's not so much the lawyer knows that. It's usually the perpetrator.
Wow.
Who knows that.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
Isn't that something? So as an advocate, I'm sure these are some of the things that you step in to help with, because
Yes.
I know that it can be frustrating.
Yes.
From someone who's been in those shoes.
Yes.
It can be frustrating. You want justice for what has happened to you. I guess, like I said, myself, judicially, I did give up and let it go. But I think that's my part of advocacy. I try to help with the victims' mental and emotional healing part,
Yes.
regardless of whether they continue to go through it judicially or not, because we have to heal ourselves as well.
Exactly.
Was that a big learning curve for you? I mean, did you walk around with a lot of hate in your heart, or?
Thank God I didn't. And again, it goes back to my family and my faith. And they kind of didn't allow me to stay in that place. They don't stay in that place.
That's good.
And so, thank God I didn't, because
Right.
I would be a different person. I would be a totally different person.
Yeah. I've talked to many women who talk a lot about how it's hard to forgive the perpetrator. They walk around with that.
It took me a long time to forgive now. I didn't.
She said, wait a minute, that's a little different.
Yeah, that's a little different.
That's a little different.
But I didn't harbor so much hate, but I think the main thing that bothered me was just how my entire life was altered. And, as a victim, or any kind of breakup or anything, it always seems like the other person is doing 10 times better. Like, they're just living the life, and you're like,
they living their best life.
Their best life. And you're like, really? I'm struggling over here.
I'm hurt.
I'm hurt.
Wounded.
Yes. Physically, emotionally,
I'm broke.
Psychologically,
Broken.
It's like financially.
All of it.
Yes.
Just broke.
Yeah, financially, definitely, because the hospital bills and yeah, it was just a lot. So yeah, it took me a long time to really, really come to grips to know about forgiveness, because I wasn't harvesting on the hatred. So I wasn't really focusing on, have I forgiven him? It just wasn't even a thought.
Right.
And if I did think about him, I could only think of, oh my goodness, I have these headaches.
Right.
I have this pain. I have this that's, just the invisible disabilities.
Yeah.
That nobody sees.
Yeah.
That nobody knows.
What is it that you tell the average victim to help them get past that particular stage as an advocate?
That no matter what, you can and you will get through it.
That's good.
And as much as people tell you that you're strong, you don't have to be strong. You can be weak. You're going to have those moments. You're going to have those moments that you want to go back. And nobody is going to understand that. But the most important thing is to journal.
Okay.
Because you know what? A lot of times, what we do is, especially as a victim, you mask it.
Yes, and mask it good.
Very good. You mask it so well that he has not only made you believe, but you've made yourself believe in order to get through it. And it's really like a survival tactic. Wow. But it will make you go back. Say, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. And the reason that sometimes people, I want to say this to listeners who have not experienced it and they don't understand why.
Yeah, because I get that question a lot. Why do they stay?
Exactly. A lot of there's so many reasons why they stay, as opposed to that one reason of why they want to leave. If you look at the list, it's so much longer of why I stayed.
Yeah.
Why do I want to leave? It's so much shorter.
Yeah.
It's more detrimental, but it's so much shorter.
Yeah.
So a lot of times as a victim, you're going to think of all the things of why you want to stay. You know what? I realized I was just talking to someone this morning about we as people, just human beings, sometimes are afraid of change.
Yes, we are.
And so when you think about someone leaving, the change is major. It's huge.
Yes. Yes.
You know, it's not as simple as something that I'm so used to Heinz 57 or something, and now I want A1, and my taste buds are changing. It's not that simple. It's so much more to it, and that's why people, they say, you know what, maybe it wasn't that bad. He did say he wasn't going to do it again. We want to believe
that. Yes, we won't believe that.
And I mean, and I want to speak to the men who are victims.
Yes, because I was going to bring that up next.
They have it.
And you know what? I'm dealing with a lot of men that are going through that right now. And not so much as the physical, but the emotional is off the charts.
Yes, it is.
Women are emotionally abusing these men like it's nothing.
Yes. And they don't even know it.
And don't even know it.
They don't know it.
And when you bring it to him, it's like,
he likes it.
I ain't doing nothing.
He's used to it. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes.
No, it's not.
It's not okay.
It's domestic abuse.
It's domestic abuse. Yep. Wow. But the men that are victims, they have it a lot of times so much more harder than women. From if they want to call 911.
Right.
If they want to go and get a protective order. To go to court. To bring up the facts. Because you have so many people that have that stigmatism.
Yes.
That we already have that stigmatism against domestic violence that it's not that bad. So can you imagine a man? Well, what has she done? Well, she said this, she did that, she wouldn't let me leave, she wouldn't let me go to work. She throws things at me on a daily, she calls me names, you know. She's just done things physically, emotionally, definitely verbally, and they don't have the support.
No, they don't.
They don't have the support from their friends.
Nope.
Because automatically, you know, a guy would say, man, come on, really? You let her do that? Why would you not step up and check her?
And a lot of times they don't have the support from their family. I know a current situation that I've been working with for the past couple of months, that she alienated his family from him. She can get the jump before he could and call them with all this garbage, and then it looks like he's the big bad guy. And then he has no one he can talk to. Because she's alienated everyone. That's a domestic abuse.
Yes, it is.
I don't think people realize that, but that's domestic abuse.
It is.
It's pretty sad.
Yes. Financially?
Oh, wow.
I've seen men that I've spoken to that even financially, where she has regulated the money for so long. And yes, And you don't think that, but I've had them that say, you know what? No, she she had me get credit cards, and she, or applied for credit cards in my name and ran them to the max. And so even if I leave, I'm leaving with now all this bad credit where in the beginning of the relationship I didn't have this.
Yeah.
But now she's done so much, drained my
It's like,
bank
what do I do?
accounts. And yeah, what do I do? I might as well just stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Because now where am I going, male or female? Where am I going to apply for an apartment?
Right.
Because now my credit is messed up.
Yeah.
As a woman, he's made me stay home. So now I haven't worked in 6 years.
Yeah, so where I'm going to get a job?
Yeah, who's going to hire me besides, a fast food chain or a convenience store?
Yeah.
Making $8 an hour, and I have these 3 babies.
Yeah.
And he said that if I leave, he's going to take me for custody of the children. And he's going to get it because he has the house, he has the car, he has a good job.
And what people don't really realize, this is real life stuff. This
Real
is
life.
really happening.
Yes.
It's really happening. So as an advocate, what can we do to, within the past 4 to 5 years, I've noticed that awareness on domestic violence has grown. Hats off.
Because the cases have tripled.
Yeah, and it has grown. The awareness has grown. People are speaking up. We're speaking out. But I'm an application type girl. What can we apply, and which is one of the reasons why I specialize in the victim, and teaching the victim how to heal and different things like that, because I feel like if that's the root, you got to get to the root,
Yes.
and you can stop all the growth. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why I come from that way. But enough awareness. What can we do now to tackle this epidemic?
Well, so many things that need to be done. One of the reasons why I talk to teenagers is because I was a teenager.
And that's also a base root.
Yes. And a lot of times they've witnessed it in the home. So 70% of a lot of the teenagers that you see that are in a domestic violence or a teen dating violence relationship is because they've seen it at home.
Okay.
And as far as boys who witness domestic violence, they're 2 times as likely to be abusive to their partner as well as to their children because they witnessed it at home. And also, 63% of boys from ages 11, I said 11, to 20 years old have been arrested for killing the person who abused their mom.
Really?
Exactly.
I had no
So we
idea.
have to start with the youth. And another thing that we have to start with is a lot of times when these people are arrested for domestic violence, it's usually a slap on the wrist. It's say we need to change our laws as far as that. And we also need to stop. We have to educate the judges and the lawyers. They don't know. They're doing us an injustice, but
They have no idea.
it's just because they don't know. Nobody has taught them. Because the one thing that you want to do is stop sending them to anger management.
Yeah. Well, I got my own thoughts on that one, but yeah.
They need to actually go to domestic violence training to get to the root. When
That's right.
anger management, they really don't teach them about domestic violence.
Right.
It's just about, did you get angry, and try not to get angry,
Yeah.
and try and channel it somewhere else and walk away. And nobody has dug in deep to
Right.
find out exactly what did you witness as a child?
Right.
What's going on that makes, we know that it's power and control. We know that there are a lot of other things that you're trying to do, but they need that training to say, no, this is not okay.
That's right. That's good. I know that you work with the campaign for Marcy's Law.
Yes.
Explain to our listeners what Marcy's Law is.
Number 4 on the ballot. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get excited?
You got real excited.
November 6th. Please vote. Please. I gotta look at
please
the camera
vote.
for this one.
Yeah.
Please vote.
Please vote.
Please vote. Please vote.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. And every 5 minutes I'm hearing a commercial and I'm in the car somewhere and I'm like, yes, yes, please vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Marcy's Law, number 4 on the ballot. And what it is it protects victims. And there's not a lot to protect victims, but this law will mandate to say that once a person is arrested, the victim will know if he's been released. And so how Marcy's Law came about is Marcy was killed by her boyfriend. He had, of course, before he had gotten out of jail, I'm sure, but he came back to kill her. And on the day of her funeral, the parents were in a grocery store and were approached by the man who killed their daughter. Yes. And so he approached them and he didn't say nice things. And they were already distraught just coming from her funeral.
Right.
And then to run into him, they had no clue that he was out. And a lot of times this happens to so many people that you don't know. And something similar to that happened to me twice with my perpetrator. I was, one time I was in a grocery store and I was coming down one aisle and he was coming from another aisle. While I quickly exited, I knew he was out, but it's just still these things that if I hadn't known.
Right. Right.
And another time I saw him again and he was stalking me, basically like walking behind me.
Wow.
But that's what Marcy's Law is. It's really important. The person who attacked me is now in jail, and it's a different state. So, they do have the law, and it's through Vine, and it's through the correction office. The I can't even say it right. The Department of Corrections, but it's a statewide one. So every time they move him, I know.
You're contacted. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Which
good.
is it lets me sleep at night. And that's what basically Marcy's Law is, to let the victim and her family be able to sleep at night. Let them know what's going on.
And you kind of answered that. I was going to ask you to tell the listeners next that why is Marcy's Law so important? Why is it so important to try to pass a bill like Marcy's Law? And that's basically what it is. If they're let out, I think the victim and the victim's family would need to know that.
Yes.
Because there's known cases where they come back and try to do it again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about the ERA bill?
Oh, Equal Rights Amendment for women. I couldn't believe that Georgia. I'm like, we're a little behind in time here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes, that it's not equal rights for women, whether it's the pay.
She stepping into a whole nother show.
A whole nother show.
Yeah. But yeah,
Ooh.
Georgia's a little behind. Stacey
Yes.
Abrams for governor, by the way. But go ahead.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Like women just don't have the same rights as men do in 2018.
This is 2018. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You didn't know that? He said, what do you mean that women don't have the same rights?
As,
There's certain things that I thought they kind of balance it out to some degree.
That's why we're trying to pass bills like ERA.
Vice versa for men, so I thought they kind of changed up some of the law to some degree.
No, that's why we're trying, that there are bills like ERA that are trying to be put in place. And ERA is Equal Rights Amendment because women are not being treated the same.
In job places or just
in so many areas.
In different areas.
Yes.
Jobs.
And Rosalind Carter has been fighting since like 1970 when Jimmy Carter was president, and she's still fighting to this day.
I see. All right. So maybe so I'm maybe.
No, this is good. This is good stuff.
So in like like sports, say for instance, we never had women's sports cast like even news. It was mostly men through the history. So I thought that kind of like it's changing. How you see women doing sports, women doing weather. You got women working in construction.
But in Georgia?
Militaries. Oh, you mean the state of Georgia?
Right.
Right.
Where's why do you think I said Stacey Abrams for governor?
Gotcha.
Yes, Georgia has not passed it yet.
No offense.
No offense.
This is I ain't gonna say no lie.
Yes,
Yes,
no.
in Georgia. Oh, so you weren't in the room when I
Yeah,
said
when we first started
that I
talking
couldn't
about
believe
it.
Georgia was so behind, even as far
They
as
kinda do that. I mean, think about most of the stuff here is traffic. Let's say traffic. One of the biggest things that we have in problem.
What?
That they need to build metro like how New York is or any big state. They need to work on like the train system, bus system.
Well, first I'm going to say, Mr. Producer, so that the listeners can hear you, if you were talking to your microphone. Secondly, into the microphone so they can hear the question that you're asking.
There's no
Yeah.
plug, but
Secondly, secondly, how we got on that is because one of the things that she advocates for is two bills right now that are going head to head, and of course, Marcy's Law is one of them.
Yes.
Marcy's Law is number 4 on the ballot, actually. And then we have ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. And at the time that you came into the room, she was explaining what ERA was. Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. It makes it for a good conversation. I love it. Y'all know I love it. I just want you to talk into the microphone so that they be like, who they listening to? Yeah.
Oh, did he fall on the floor? Oh no, you're getting him shook up.
This is Candid Conversation. It's
It's a good conversation.
a good conversation. So that they can hear. But anyway.
While you're talking, I'm gonna go and administer CPR over there and make sure he's okay. Okay.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. If he can wait till
I
the
don't
end
know
of
if
the
he's
show, I know, right? So
Hey, that was a moment.
that was a real good moment. I love it. That's why it's Candid Conversation. I love this show. So, you want to finish telling us what ERA is? Oh gosh, how embarrassing. By the way, my producer just fell on the ground, and I didn't know if I was supposed to just interrupt and run and catch him, or
No, it was too late to catch him.
it was too late. He was already there. Huh? Anyway, I know, right? Awesome, amazing. Play some sound effects or something for me real quick. Clap, laugh, I don't know, do something. But anyway, so ERA.
Yes. I don't want to go sway too far away though from our
No, that's
domestic
okay.
violence.
No, just a little bit,
Yes.
because I'm gonna bring that back on another show.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So just kind of give what ERA is, what the fight is for, and why that's important to a woman who's gone through domestic violence as well.
Absolutely. Because we don't have the rights. So again,
That's where I was going.
Yes. Because the laws look at us differently.
Mm-hmm.
They look at us as women.
Mm-hmm.
And it also makes it harder when she is trying to provide for the family after she's left, you know, a violent situation and left a relationship, whether it's a marriage or just a relationship where she experienced domestic violence, and now you're trying to get back to where you were and try and get your life back, but now your finances
Right. As you
are
said
low.
before. Mhm.
A lot of times your credit is bad, which goes all the way back to that, why didn't she leave?
Right.
You know,
And that's why these bills are important, which is why I wanted her to elaborate a little bit like she did.
Absolutely.
You know, yes, Equal Rights Amendment, it covers the basis of so many things. But as far as domestic violence, it gives us a say-so in the situations that we have going on.
Yes.
It gives us a say-so in the scenario where a lot of times, oh, that's the woman, You
Yeah.
know, and I know we've come a long way because I can remember back to the burning bed.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
Ooh, that was what, in the 80s?
Yes.
I was a little girl when that thing came
Yes.
out.
Were you little?
I was, yes, I was. Anyway.
I was little too.
But I remember then, and it scared me too. I'm gonna get him for that. Sweat coming out. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I remember he was even a cop, and at the time, no one believed her.
Yes.
Like what she had to say didn't mean
Well, we still have that in politics now. If you just
Yeah.
look at the news today.
anything. Yeah.
And so we need equal rights amendment as far as the women being able to hold power positions, especially in the state of Georgia. It's a man-ran
Yeah.
state, so.
Yeah. Wow. So it's so much to cover.
It
Like this topic is so broad. It's so broad. Wow. Whew, anyway, so
You need Sabrina McKenzie on your show to talk about the ERA. That's
yeah,
what you need.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But that's good. That's good. That's good. So
Shout out to Sabrina.
shout out Sabrina. Teen dating.
Yes.
Teen dating. I know you tackle that issue a lot. I know you're in the high schools now.
Yes.
And I know we talked the other day.
Big day tomorrow,
Yeah, you got a
yes.
big day about it tomorrow.
Yes.
And so what are you going to be discussing? How do you advocate for these teens that are going through domestic violence at such a young age?
Yes. Woo. Okay, so we have a full curriculum. And actually, Georgia is a state, so shout out to Georgia for
Yeah, look at that part.
mandating, yes, that it be taught in the middle school and high schools.
Good. That's good.
Now we just need all of the counties to come on board to actually implement it.
Okay.
So there are only a few counties that right now have implemented it for us to go into their schools and talk to the students. So we go in during their health class, part of their PE health, and that's when we talk about it. And with me speaking to the children, there's a curriculum that I go by, but I also go through a lot of the teens that they can relate to, a lot of the stories that they can relate to, and read them those stories. And so many of them are like, oh, I've heard about that.
Right.
And a lot of the stories are right here in Georgia.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I've been in classes where I've brought up articles and they say, oh, I knew her, or I knew someone who knew her.
Wow.
Yes. And so that's the main way of how I bring to light for them to understand, because sometimes I'm in the middle school, so they're in 6th grade. So they may not recognize it, but when I bring up
These scenarios.
these scenarios, for example, and I'm sorry because my brain is like racing right now, the young teenager who went into the school and shot up all of the kids. And so when I ask the children, the first thing I ask them when I'm bringing up the article, I say, who can tell me about this story? So a lot of them raise their hand. They're excited. They're like, oh, I know. He was adopted. And then some of the other students will say, oh, well, his adoptive mom and dad died. And I asked them, what else can you tell me? Oh, he had a brother. And he lived with his friend. But that's kind of like where it stops right there. They can't tell me anything else about him. And so when I go in to tell them, well, do you realize that he had actually got expelled? Then some of them will raise their hands, oh yeah, he got expelled, he got expelled. But the key thing is, why did he get expelled? And no one can really tell me why he got expelled. And I tell them, you know, he got expelled because he had actually come back to the school. I mean, he was in school, and he beat a boy that his ex-girlfriend was now dating. And before
At a
he,
young age.
at a young age, and before her, he tried to date another girl, and she cut it off immediately, and she said he was creepy because he was stalking her and he was calling her all the time and texting her. So it was other girls before this girl that broke out with him that said no more. But what happened was that girl broke out with him because she said he had been physical. He had been physically violent with her. So she broke up with him, and then she started dating someone else. And when he came back to school, he beat that boy up. And that's why they expelled him.
And then he came back and shot
And then he
up the
came back
school.
and shot up the entire school. And so many of these school shootings, if we dive deep enough, we find out that it was teen dating violence before they actually acted out and decided to kill all these people.
Whew, and it's going on. It's going on every single day
Every
in
day.
our schools with our teens,
Every
and
day,
it
yes.
starts there.
Yes,
And a lot of times it starts because of what they seen.
exactly.
I know in your situation, you were a teen victim as well.
Yes.
And he stabbed you 30 times.
Yes, I was cutting out my senior pictures from high school.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's why the scissors were out.
That's why the scissors were out. Yeah, he knew that the scissors, he saw the scissors, the pictures, and I had actually moved it to a corner of the room. And sometime between me leaving out of the room or either walking him to the door is when he decided
To grab the scissors.
to grab the scissors.
Man, it's going on, people.
Mhm.
I'm telling you. So now you are aware.
Yes.
You are aware. We got to start taking action.
Hmm. We have to bring awareness, help our teenagers to see,
Educate them.
absolutely. Like the young lady, unfortunately, in Ohio, where even her mother said that before her daughter broke up with the boy, she felt it was creepy that he was calling and texting her like 70 times a day. That's not normal.
How old was he?
Yes.
Yes, talk in the mic, please.
Okay. So we know these teenagers have emotions. So I mean, you can't predict the future for no teenager, but is any way to kind of teach them how, about proper relationship? Because like, how we back in the day, I think some of us just have sex eds and all that. A lot of them, they couldn't go too in deep, but at least they kind of, if they start them early. I think we got that like,
I think that's what she's doing when she's
okay.
going into the schools, the curriculum. They're teaching about
Healthy dating.
Healthy dating.
Yes.
Healthy dating,
Yes,
yeah.
that's exactly what they're teaching because there's so many
And I think,
that have violence.
I mean, the parents only can do so much because they work 9 to 5, whatever, in life, and
Exactly.
they run it by, and they might say something here and there, but if they have, even out the school, the kind of like little programs and stuff, and at least and the parents know about it, at least they can help.
Help them.
Yes.
Yeah, prepare some of these teenagers, for better.
Absolutely. 3 out of 4 parents have never spoken to their children
Right.
about teen dating violence.
Not violence, not the violence. Always talk about the
About
Teen
the
dating.
healthy
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
relationships,
even teen
boundaries.
dating, yeah.
They don't. They just say don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't allow this. But they don't really go
They
into
don't go into
depth
that.
about what's healthy and what's not healthy. You should be able to voice your
And-
opinion.
And even
You can
just-
argue, you can disagree,
Right.
but it should be healthy.
Right. But even teaching young men or young women how to handle some of their emotions.
Yes.
That too, that's to be, because then they won't react. Or like that behavior, like he's stalking, like why are you doing? Like what's in your mind?
Yeah, he wasn't taught. He
Absolutely.
wasn't taught any different.
Yeah, why he's
I don't
processing that thought process, even to think that way. Like
Yes.
he go play some video game or something. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah. To give you a good example, I mean, our adults these days don't know the difference between dating and courting.
right.
Yes.
So that's because they wasn't taught. They wasn't taught or discussed. They didn't realize that there's something healthy about just dating.
Yes. Just dating.
Yeah.
That was what my issue was with my attacker. We're just dating. In his mind, we were boyfriend, girlfriend.
About to
We were
get married.
exclusive and we were about to get married.
They don't know the
respected. Yes.
You
And
got grown people.
if a boy is not going to respect his teachers or his parents, 9 times out of 10 he's not gonna respect you. He doesn't respect authority.
Right.
So
That's good. That's good. So yes, you want to tell us the organization that you work with?
So I work with Promise Place, which is in Fayetteville. And like I said, I teach the teen dating violence awareness. And I also volunteer and do a chat line with them and some other projects that they work on.
Okay. So you guys hear that? That organization does go into the high schools in that area.
Yes.
If you know someone that needs this in their high school, you can contact Promise. What's the name of it?
Promise Place.
Promise Place.
Yes.
And maybe we can, get some things going. I think, like I said, I'm an application type girl. I'm not, with my own foundation, of course, it's good to spread their awareness. Yeah, rah, rah, rah. But what are we doing about it?
Exactly.
What are we doing about it? And so I want to make sure that I'm always implementing some type of tools or resources. Oh, my microphone fell. I'm sorry. Man, he gonna bust me out now.
I was gonna lift it.
He mad because he fell and I didn't.
That's when your microphone fell.
Hey, we want people to hear you.
Oh, thank you.
Can we replay, please?
No, don't replay. But yes, I want to make sure that I'm always. There's never a dull moment on this show. I love it. I want to make sure that I am always implementing tools and resources to make it better.
Me too.
Awareness is not enough.
Yes.
Okay, so you're aware. Where are you in educating? How much do you know now?
Yes.
What can we do to prevent this? What can we do to actually stop it? I mean, with it being an epidemic, it's going to be a long time before we actually stop it. But what can we do to prevent it?
Yes.
Start with the basis. And I think right now the basis is teen dating violence.
Yes.
Because these are our teens are growing up to be adults who are violent.
Very violent. And when you think about it, with all of the things that are happening with our teenagers, we didn't see this 10 years ago. We didn't see it 20 years ago. Definitely didn't see it 30 years ago.
That's right.
And now it has gotten to the point that they have more access to weapons. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it is.
But when you look at, I know just in February alone, which is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, it seemed like I came across even more stories of so many teenagers being killed. There was one boy, Jaden, he was 17 years old, and it was the Thursday before Valentine's Day weekend, and he had just taken his PSATs. He was preparing for college. His basketball team at school had just won their area championship, and he was just so excited and ready to go out and buy a Valentine's Day gift for his girlfriend of 2 years. And unfortunately, his life ended. He was in the shower, and he heard his sister screaming. He ran out of the apartment to find his sister in the parking lot, and she was the older sister. Her boyfriend had a gun to her head, and he jumped in the middle to try and intervene. And basically on purpose, this guy was like, oh, I know this will devastate the family even more. And so he shot and killed them. And so domestic violence affects the entire family. It doesn't just affect,
It does.
it affects everyone.
Everybody.
She was in the parking lot. Her children were in the parking lot. They all witnessed this. And then to have his life taken
Right there in
away,
front of all
right
of
in
them.
front of everyone. And so that's why we need stricter laws, and we just need more awareness, especially when it comes to the legal defense and everything.
Awesome. As an advocate, go ahead with your question, sir.
I like this that we have an audience.
Yes, we have an audience.
But
Yes.
now they're adults. So it'd be nice. I mean, we don't, like in church,
Yes.
Church and somewhat have like, what they call it, like a partner. Like, I don't know what's the term they use. Like, you know, somebody they can,
I know what you mean. Yes.
Like, they can depend on, like, hey, I'm going through something mentally.
That will call you to and say, hey, you weren't in church the last 2 Sundays.
Yeah.
Are you
And
okay?
Buddy or
Nice.
peer,
Yes.
a buddy or a peer or something
Yes.
like that. Yeah.
It'd be nice that could happen outside, or even, you know, ministry kind of can step their game up to even structure that, because I know it's not gonna say going on detail, almost the same situation where somebody got very upset of their spouse, went to the house and shot the parent, the mom, the kids, and I think one kid lived out the whole thing, but he then took the gun and killed himself.
Exactly.
So it's like, that's a sad story across the board. Like, imagine if somebody would have intercepted him,
Yes.
talked to him like, yo, it's not that serious.
Yes.
Is there any way we can do to, you know, resolve it?
Yes.
Even if whatever the case was, it'd be nice to intercept it. So, sometimes we can't, you never know what's gonna
Yes.
happen. But it'd be nice to have that buddy system or something.
So you need me to come to your church?
Huh?
You need me to come to your
No,
church?
I'm not. Baby.
Because I'm available. Because that's a whole nother realm.
it is.
But we do need that
because-
ministry
Yeah,
in
yeah,
these
church, yeah.
churches.
Churches
then
need
you just
that
hit it.
domestic-
We have everything else, you know, we got the fish board, whatever, all kind of other.
Yes.
Right,
you know,
right, yeah.
Stronger domestic violence.
Absolutely.
I am so for it. Churches
I
do
speak
need
at a lot of
domestic
churches.
violence ministry. Yes.
Yes.
And that's a ministry.
By itself.
By itself.
Right. It's not only
Not
like,
mixed
you know,
with
you have
something
the
else. It's-
counseling side,
Yeah.
but I'm not saying the counselors don't have the full scope, but then you need that ministry. People are dealing with serious stuff.
Serious. And
And they
yes.
can- so-
Yes. And you know, I can tell you that just from experience, I've spoken at a lot of churches and I've had women come to me and say, I'm so glad you came to speak about it. I'm going through it right now. Not I've gotten out, I'm still in it.
Right now.
He only lets me come to church. And a lot of time,
Different groups, like the man group, woman group, but it's cool.
yes,
I think you need that domestic.
absolutely.
You might want to have, you know, both of them come, hey,
Yes,
you know, eat, whatever, vice versa. Like, maybe
absolutely.
I'm dealing with some stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can we?
Yes, because that person is not, that perpetrator is not going to say anything to the pastor until he got to go to court.
You know, right? Pastor, bring me out. I'm getting you locked up.
I can tell you this. Look at Stacy's face.
I'm sorry, jump in.
Oh, no, I'm so glad you did. Let me just tell you this. And this is so important. And I say this, and I'm going to keep saying it as long as I can speak, that it is so, so important. He brought me to a whole nother subject. Support. It is so important that we support victims. And I never knew until this became my calling and my purpose. That opened my eyes of how important it was to support victims. So when I came to court as a surprise witness, my family came and they were sitting there like they were with my attacker. So they blended in, even though they were looking a little bit more angry, but nobody really paid them any mind. And as I got off the stand, the prosecuting attorney, they asked her, did she have anything else to say? And she said, yes, I just want to recognize Natalie's family is here. And I was just like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? And she like pointed like, look, they're here. They're all here. And so afterwards is when she told me, she said, do you understand that I've been doing this for a long time? And it was important for us to show that so many years have gone by and it's still affecting your family enough that they're here in court today. And a lot of people think that it doesn't affect the family because the family won't show up for the victim,
Right.
but the perpetrator will have the whole courtroom filled. Well, that's what happened. Even though I was testifying, unfortunately, the victim couldn't come forward because she was still going through it, but nobody in her family came to find out what the outcome was going to be. And his entire church family was there, and the pastor was there, and he even spoke in closing arguments, spoke up and said, hey, this is a wonderful family. He's a wonderful man. And y'all don't know what y'all doing. But this is before I got on the stand to testify. So he didn't know. So he only went by what this guy was telling him and what the parents were saying. And so, yeah, he got up there and said, oh, no, this is a good guy. So it's important that a lot of our ministers and pastors and bishops and all of them, they get the training as well, and they know how to deal with these people and deal with what they're going through.
That's right.
In order
Before
to,
they mentioned illness, but I think beyond that, I know there's terms for it. They still need that coaching.
they do. Absolutely. And sometimes they want the help too. They want the help.
And sometimes they need it too.
They need it
because
too.
I've been in a room full of first ladies.
Yes.
And
Oh, yes.
over
And they're
half
going
of
through
them
it. Yes.
were victims.
Yes. And who you going to tell? You will have a whole church turn against you. Not our pastor. Yes.
Yeah. So it happens. So yeah, so it's needed. Let's see, to leave with us, what would you say to the average victim right now who's listening?
Get out. Easier said than done. So, of course, to be safe first and foremost, because that's the most dangerous time to leave. And that's why it takes 7 times, sometimes more. So maybe this is your first time, and maybe this might not be the time.
Right.
But to just try and stay focused, be safe about it, but definitely to leave. As much as I talked about how difficult it is to start over, you can start over. There are a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of shelters, including Promise Place, but there's a lot of shelters and everything where you can be safe and you can start over. And once you're out of it and you really escape, because that's what it is, you're escaping. Once you escape and you have that peace of mind, you won't want to go back. When you realize that you don't have to be on pins and needles every time that person comes home. You don't have to worry about if you're going to get hit, if this is going to be the day that I'm going to be killed, if this is the day that my children are going to be killed. And just if you have children, definitely you want to get out because it affects the children.
As well. And I asked that question because a victim of domestic violence waits until they've been hit at least 35 times before they even file a police report. So that's why I asked you to tell those who are listening, if you are in that situation, get out. I know you get tired of hearing why you stay, but as a previous victim, I understand. But at the same time, you got to think about your life.
Yes, and it is worth your life is worth it. Regardless of how many times you've been told every day, day in and day out, that it doesn't. I believe in God, and I know that God wouldn't have you here if your life wasn't meaningful.
That's right.
You'd have been gone a long time ago. You wouldn't even exist.
That's right.
So regardless of what somebody tells you, your life is worth it, and you can make a difference.
So you have it. There you have it. And also, I want you guys to know, and she said it as well, support the victim.
Yes.
Support the victim. That means a whole lot. If you want to hear more about Miss Natalie's story, make sure you tune into I Dated a Psycho, Season 1, Episode 5. It's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener to see her here today after being stabbed 30 times and went through all of the trauma. They thought they had lost her. So check it out. I thank you for coming on the show, sweetheart.
Thank you so much
Sharing
for
a little
having
insight.
Me. Yes.
I had fun.
I did too.
This show here.
I appreciate you.
I have fun. But we said it before, help you and support the victims. But as I close, I do want to leave with you, help and support others. I've talked about this before, but in Philippians 2 and 4, don't look only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. It's not unusual for someone to feel like it's not worth living. Many, if not most, feel this way sometimes. And I know that there are a lot of victims out there who feel like, life is just not worth living. My recommendation for those who feel this way is to begin focusing on helping other people. Lift the burdens of others and make their life better. That will produce a life with meaning and joy. Only those who live to help others will ever find any true satisfaction in life. It may seem like other plans people use to make themselves happy are working in the short term, but in the long run, they always fail to bring lasting joy and fulfillment. So if you desire to be like God, who is happy and joyful, then be a helper. God helps everyone. He produces and gives an abundance of good things for everybody. He gives us air, he gives us water, he gives us food. I mean, the list is just endless. But at the end of your life here on earth, only what you have done to help others will be valuable to you. All that you did for your only selfish reasons will be a disappointment. The best tonic for depression is to get involved in helping others. When you begin to help others, it's amazing how your own problems seem to shrink. And I'll tell you, it has happened every time I thought that my problem was just so big. I get to helping somebody, and it's like, oh, I don't even have a problem.
Yes.
Because their problem is consuming.
Yes.
So help someone else. Do you want your life to be better? Then focus on what you can do to make life better for others. Guess what, y'all? Well, my sound effects, it's just not working. He just not on it.
He laughed. He's on break.
Guess what, y'all?
What?
You have been listening and watching to Candid Conversation with Coach Stacy right here on 108 Praise Radio, where we voice the gospel. I thank you guys for joining. Shout out to all of you out there. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again next week. Woo! Bye. Yeah! I don't know what that was. Bye.
Bye.